Happy New Year 2023. As you can see, I'm standing in front of this music wall. In this video, I'm going to go over things I've learned and kind of review 2023 in terms of music. And at one point, I'm going to go over the things on this wall. I have a few of these walls where it's just a bunch of music topics and stuff like that. Here's some scales over here for guitar, but other musical such things. I'm going to go over why they're on my wall and the meaning I can get from them. Okay, so 2022. 2022 was a pretty big year for me. One of the things that I heard was if you want to make a YouTube channel, just make it and start posting videos. So that's what I did. I made a YouTube channel. I started posting some videos, and I soon after that realized I want to make videos about music. So that was probably one of the most important things I heard in 2022. It made a huge impact on my life, and it's probably going to make a huge impact on my future as well. And every time I make one of these YouTube videos, I have to think about the topic that I'm talking about. So I end up learning stuff just thinking about it. A lot of times before I make the video, I do research, so I learn something. And then if I already know the things that I'm teaching, I say them again and I'm reviewing them. So then I solidify them in my mind and I know them so much more. So this has been very important to me. And also I've learned a lot of things. One of the things I've learned is that you can learn a lot of music ideas and you can translate those outside of music. So one thing is a lot of people, especially in jazz, will say, okay, in music you need to learn all the rules, all the theory, and then you need to just break all those rules after you learn everything. And that may seem like, okay, you're gonna learn everything just to break it, but it makes sense when you realize that, yeah, you're learning all these ideas and all this knowledge just to be able to go outside of that, but you're still using the ideas and stuff like that as ideas. Another one would be, people say if you learn something slow, like on an instrument, for example, then you can start to play it faster and faster and faster, and then you can one day play it really fast. And that can translate with so many things outside of music. It's pretty cool. And one other thing that's just made a big impact in my life in 2022 was learning an instrument. And I want to say that it was probably a year and a half ago I got my first guitar, and I bought it myself, the first guitar that I actually bought, saying I want to learn this and stuff like that. So I got it, and I said, I want to play like the professional players. Started learning some scales, started jamming out to backing tracks, started making some cool stuff, but nothing really sounded like the stuff out here commercially. So I started wondering, what's going on here? And I started doing research on like my favorite players and my favorite guitar players mostly. And I started seeing something in common with a lot of them. And it's, most of the time they have this first one in common always. And it's that they've been playing for a crazy long time. They're practicing all the time. They're trying to replicate their favorite songs, and they're trying to practice things that they love to play and stuff like that. And they're just playing all the time, all the time, all the time. And then the second one, with a lot of the more complex players that seem to be able to play multiple genres. Like, wow, this guy can play anything and sound like anyone almost, is a lot of times they know the music theory topics and are able to either play something and then look at it and apply the music theory and understand what they just played, or play something just by trying to play something that they're thinking of in terms of sort of like an understanding of music and stuff like that, or compose something, whatever it is. And realizing that was a big breakthrough for me, that wow, these people have spent so much time. They didn't just get born a gifted musician. Like a lot of people will convince you that the best musicians just were sort of born and they looked at a sheet of paper and they composed, their 5 symphonies right there. And that's not really what happens. Like especially composing, most people who compose music took a lot of time to study learning how to actually understand music as a whole and then understand how to compose for music. So it goes a lot further and a lot deeper than a lot of people realize, and that I realized, so it was a big breakthrough for me. So then I started doing more research on music theory, and one thing led to another thing. I found this one video called the Music Theory Map, and it's by Signals Music Studio, I think his YouTube channel is called, and that was great because he went over, it's called, I think, 43 things a modern composer should know. And he said, there's more things than this, but this is kind of like the base level. And he's right, and also it is pretty much the base level, but also from the things that he gave you, the list that he gave you, it will also then branch you off to other things. You'll see other recommended videos. You'll start to learn more, and just also listening to videos that are around music, you'll start to hear words that you're like, okay, I don't know that word, you have to look it up. So it's a long process understanding and learning music, especially if you're self-taught. I am self-taught, and it's how I like to learn, so I would rather actually teach myself than go to a university or something like that, because I'm learning at my own pace, and I found that oftentimes I'm learning sometimes quicker than a university would teach me, and sometimes I'm learning slower, and it's in my own control. If I want to learn something really fast, I can. If I need to take a mental break, then I can. And in a university, I probably would not be able to do that. So it's really good to kind of have my own control here doing this. This works for me personally. I've always been good at being a little more self-taught than actually having someone teach me. And I think if you're someone like that too, then you should try to figure out how to teach yourself, things that you're passionate about in life, and it might change your life. So teaching myself a lot of things about music wasn't just me teaching me, it was also going on YouTube and searching music teachers, because there are a lot of free music teachers on YouTube. One of the biggest ones is Music Matters. Great videos. I know that in the beginning, like Signals Music Studios and Adam Neely and stuff like that were big helps. If you're into like composing for orchestra, there's a guy called Orchestration Online, and he is phenomenal. He's literally a professional composer, and he will show you how to compose for orchestra and really break it down more than anyone I've ever seen, because his whole niche, the whole channel is literally just about composing for orchestra. So maybe talk about some of the things that I've learned. Like I started off learning, and I tell people this, if you want to learn about music, learn the major scale, okay? Learn the chromatic scale, understand these things, okay? Learn the pattern of the major scale. And one thing that people don't talk about a lot is I'm going to talk about why major scale is called a major scale right now, because we're on that topic. It's not off topic. Okay, so major scale, one reason why I'm pretty sure it's called a major scale, because these things are, I can't talk too definite about this and say this is a fact, but this seems like this is why. Okay, so if you take any interval in the major scale, you have a major interval. Okay, so let's start from C. Well, if you start from the bass note, so we're in a C major scale, and we're going to make intervals with C. Okay, so we have a major second, and then if you see, we have a major third, and then we have a perfect fourth, and we have a perfect fifth. So these aren't major or minor, they're perfect. But then everything else, like a sixth is a major sixth, and then we have a major seventh, and then we have a perfect octave. And as we keep going, we then get the higher extensions of the major second. As you see, they're all major. So I've never really heard anyone actually tell me that. I had to actually figure that out one day. I was just kind of just playing around on the piano and looking at stuff, and I went, wait a second, all these intervals are major. It's called the major scale. They're kind of, I think, has to be something to that. Okay, and then the chromatic scale, as you probably know, it's just all 12 notes that you have in Western music, and understanding that is also a really big thing. Also, intervals. I tell people, understand intervals. Those three things will help you understand so much about music. And then if you want to actually get into composing, a lot of things right now are more like MIDI and more like a DAW and a computer program or something, and that's great. But in my opinion, it is really good, and you don't have to, but it's really good to understand the basic fundamental stuff of sheet music and understand little things that are on sheet music. And when you learn this, you can translate this to your other computer programs, and you can understand so much more, and you can basically understand music as a topic. So when you go on these music programs, you can understand the beats, the rhythm, the time signatures, dynamics, articulations, and things that would not be obvious to you if you didn't study the basics of music. So in my opinion, you're actually going to save time in life if you study these music theory topics, and then if you go on, like, let's say Ableton, and want to make the music that you want to create, whatever that music might be, you'll find a lot more help if you actually understand these music topics. And a funny thing to talk about is that I have a hard time sometimes saying music theory, because music theory is more of a modern idea, modern word. because people used to just call it music. When you wanted to learn how to make music, you'd study music. You'd oftentimes learn an instrument first in school or wherever you were taught and stuff like that, and then as you got older, you'd slowly learn more of what we call music theory now, but it was just music, or if you're into composing, conducting, it's, more advanced music. You just understand music and composing and stuff like that. So it's kind of funny how now we call it music theory, and it almost has a connotation of seeming like more smart or something like that, and for some a little scarier than just realizing that you're just learning about music. And I almost wish that we had a more connotation, just like, hey, it's, just learning about music, and you can take it as far as you want. You can learn the most simple things, and you can learn like 5 topics, and like chord progressions and intervals and stuff like that, and you can start to make little songs on your guitar. Or you can take it much further, and you can learn how to compose songs for a band, or you can take it even further, and you can start to learn how to compose songs for orchestra, or whatever you want. You can take it to the moon, maybe create something new. Okay, so, there's no really boundaries here in terms of stuff that is possible. So, and not everything that's possible has been thought of before, so it's awesome thinking about that and realizing that we are in a day and age of immense technology and information, and with that we probably will be seeing a lot of things that has never been done before, and sort of people breaking outside the boundaries. So I think it's a cool time to be alive, because one thing is, I don't think there's ever been a moment in time to where anyone has been able to access this much music. Right now, I can access music from, stuff that is performed later and recorded later, but stuff that has been written down from the 1700s, like Bach and stuff like that. I can look at Mozart and Beethoven. I can go forward now into modern day. I can look at stuff that was posted 10 years ago, 1 day ago, 10 seconds ago. So it's kind of phenomenal that the internet allows us to go across the earth and sort of take things that were posted years and years and years, or even not centuries, but maybe a century, but like decades ago. And it's kind of crazy just to think about, like, wow, music is very important to us humans, basically. So I love to think about that, and the fact that music is just something that almost everyone enjoys to spend their time with. There are very few people that actually say they don't enjoy music at least once in a while. So it's something that we all can kind of relate to. And it's funny because when you think about music, all that music is a bunch of random sounds. Maybe not random, but you could think about them just as sounds. And they're just placed in certain orders, and we find it so pleasing to our ears, and we find it so nice. And that's why it is kind of cool to understand what we call the music theory stuff, because you start to understand why certain things sound good or what sounds good. And with that, you can make stuff that you want, and you can think of something and sort of compose it. That's sort of the idea with understanding music. Some other things I want to talk about which are interesting. One thing is harmonic series. So if you study the harmonic series, it's kind of like one of the most breakthrough things in music for any musician or anyone studying music, or even anyone curious about music. It's sort of like understanding the physics of the sound of the notes of music. And when you start to understand that, it opens up a whole new doorway and perception that most probably didn't have before understanding it. And it goes pretty in depth, but one of the simplest things about it is that you have a note, basically, and in any note it contains other notes inside of it, and basically with that, it's the harmonic series. You have harmonics of a note, and also in any note you have a certain amount of vibrations. So like A, I'm almost positive, is 440 hertz, and if it's not, it's something, I'm pretty sure it's A, is 440 hertz. Or it'd be like 220 if it's an octave lower than that, because every time it doubles or lowers by the amount of hertz that it is. And with that understanding, it's kind of interesting, because you can start to understand that when you're ascending up notes, you're just going up hertz, basically, the amount of vibrations a second. So, and yes, to describe hertz, it would be the amount of vibrations a second measured. So when you hear 400 vibrations a second of something, and if you can imagine that, you wouldn't hear that, you'd hear like it would be so fast it'd merge into one sort of thing, as you can probably imagine, and it would actually make the note A every time. And it might sound a little different depending on if you're doing it with your hand, or if you're, I don't think that's possible, but what you're doing, if you're doing clarinet, or if you're doing whatever, what that note means is that something is vibrating the air 440, let's say, vibrations a second. So it's really interesting. Like the other day I was hearing my parents' like duck came on for their air, and it was like dung, and I started humming the note that came on, and I started realizing that it was a note A, and it was the second octave register of A, and I started laughing. And then another one came on, and it was higher pitch, and I started thinking, well, that probably means that it's spinning faster. And I started thinking, it's kind of funny how you can understand the harmonic series, and it can help you just understand other little random things about, like, let's say how fast a motor's spinning versus another one, because of the pitch of it. And then you can start to understand things like when something is spinning slower to faster, it goes up in pitch, and that's something we've comprehended, but we maybe haven't actually thought about in perspective of that it's going up notes. So something is, it's, traveling up pitch, so it's traveling up notes. I find that really interesting. Another thing is ear training. I'm kind of just going over a lot of random things here, but this is the random 2023 video, so here's what it is. And ear training. One thing, it's really important to do ear training. So basically with ear training, it can go in many different ways, and you can do your own ear training, whatever that might be. But for me, a lot of ear training is listening to music and studying time signatures, studying beat patterns, studying why certain beats are emphasized, like beat hierarchy kind of sort of things, and just kind of listening to songs and trying to memorize them in pitch. So like a lot of times if you memorize your favorite song in words and you haven't heard in a while, you can still remember those words. It's really fun to like look up like a symphony or something and try to remember all the notes, not listen to it for a while, and then come back to it later and try to remember all those notes again, because then you'll start to realize that it's almost like memorizing the lyrics in just a different way. You're not actually memorizing words, you're just remembering the noises. And it's almost like in the same part of your brain, I feel like. I don't know if it is, but it just comes very naturally. If you just kind of just hum to the song or try to memorize it, it's like it kind of gets stored in your brain. And then also, one thing that's interesting is that I think ear training is something that people used to have to do, and maybe not have to, but most chose to do to become better musicians, because they didn't have technology. And a lot of people didn't have cell phones, and before that they didn't have computers, they didn't have internet. And you can imagine what would happen even before a limited supply of information or books and stuff like that was even worse. So what happens if someone wants to become a really good musician and they don't, let's say, have the internet at all, they're not going to be able just to look up their favorite song and play it. And let's say in a time where they didn't have recorded like music, iPods, stuff like that. So you'd have to hear a song, and this is just for example, like a lot of people probably had to do this. They would, let's say, go out and they would hear a song somewhere, because a lot of stuff was live. They'd go somewhere and let's say they heard live music on the side of the road, or they were just at a symphony, something like that. They go home and they have this tune stuck in their head, and they're like, like I want to be able to play that. And then they have to sit down on their piano and they have to figure out what they just heard and try to replicate it. And with that, they're not able to look up the sheet music. They're not able to, there's no internet. They're not able to really do anything other than try to sit there and with their song that they heard in their head, with that melody in their head, and with their instrument, try to create that. So then with that, it's a learning experience for them. They're going to train their ears, they're going to learn piano, and kind of be maybe in the same shoes as the people who were making the song. Maybe not, but could be. So it might give them more insight, was what I'm trying to say, towards what the person was creating the song, or just give them ideas if they want to create their own music. But that is not something that in the modern day and age you have to do. In the modern day and age, you can even take a song that you like, and you can probably just look up the exact notes somewhere, and then from there you don't even have to play it. You could even just plug that in and type that in on a computer program and have it play it for you. And that is convenient. And I think that's great that we've come to this level. But, you know, I think that things come at a double-edged sword sometimes, and it's kind of a double-edged sword that we don't have to train our ears so much, and we don't have to teach ourselves so much, and we don't have to listen to songs over and over just to get them exactly right to be able to play it on our instrument, which makes us a better musician and someone better adept at actually creating music. So I feel like we've almost been robbed a little bit in our current day and age with the amount of information that we do have at the same time of gaining things with it. Like I'm saying, it's a double-edged sword. So in one sense, I think it's doing us a little bit of harm, and it's because we don't have to do so much, and it's so much easier for us just to be able to get some computer program and start to put like noises together that sound good and kind of create a song or something. And oftentimes people don't want to learn all the what we call music theory stuff because it seems like that's stuff of the past. Why would I want to make music that sounds like what people used to make? I want to make new music, and new music, you know, you don't have to do that. And I could see the argument, but I could also argue that learning the music theory topics would help you be just a better musician, because you'd understand how to do what you want to do more. So if you want to make this sound, or if you want to do that, or if you want to sound this way, you're going to understand how to do that so much more if you do study music than if you kind of just get Ableton one day and just try to just every single day learn music, because you can do that. People do that. But at some point, a lot of people realize that they could save time if they kind of understand what they're doing a little more. And that's just a fact there. I've heard it enough to know that it is something that some people think. So yeah, 2023, I know people say New Year's resolution a lot, and I like that, and I probably do have some too, but I think one of the biggest ideas is that you don't always have to have a New Year's resolution if you're already doing the things that you would put in your New Year's resolution. So my New Year's resolution would be like making this YouTube channel and posting it all the time, and also studying the other things in life I need to study, and living the life I need to live, blah blah blah, and not letting things get in my way, kind of just doing what I want to do, but also being responsible, because doing what I want to do is also in terms of like working and being responsible and stuff. So I kind of already have my New Year's resolutions met to a degree, but then again, it's also healthy to create some. It's just, I think it's good to think about, okay, I don't need a New Year's resolution because I'm already doing this. I'm already living my life. I'm already doing the things I want to do. But then with that mindset, you can think, okay, well, what could else I do? And I started thinking, well, I really want to make a band. And I was thinking, a 2023 New Year's resolution for me could be getting a band together. And my vision for a band is something that I think would be pretty cool and turn out pretty awesome. And it's all the musicians in there are basically pretty musically inclined. They understand music to some degree. Either they're like a virtuoso with their instrument, or they understand like music theory topics and are able to apply it towards composing, arranging, producing something, and whatever it might be. I think that if I get a group together of people that are either of those things or both of those things at the same time, it could be great. For me, I am practicing piano and guitar some, but I really am practicing with my voice a lot, so I'm practicing singing. I'd love to be a singer. I'm not like I don't have a very soprano voice. I have more like a tenor voice, so I do still think that I could be a lead singer, though, and I want to be a lead singer. I have a lot of lyrics written and stuff like that, a lot of song ideas that I have, and I could also do a lot of arranging and stuff like that. I'm really good at keeping time, so it's always a thought of mine to maybe also do drumming. But the big thing is to meet more people and to branch out. So anyone watching this, if you're like virtuoso, instrumentalist, or something like that, reach out to my Instagram channel. If you click on my YouTube channel, you'll see a link to my Instagram page, and just, reach out to me. Or if you just really like music, if you're really into this and you're really thinking, okay, I would love to do this band thing, reach out to me and, let's practice or something, or talk about this. I want to get something together. Like some of the best groups, what I'm noticing is that they have really good harmony. So with that, I think a lot of the people do practice singing and probably just practice studying music in general. So that'd be really great just to have people who, even if they aren't people who are trying to sing all the time or be lead singers, if they knew how to hit those notes right, we could all harmonize our voices together and create some very powerful music like Journey, Toto, those big bands, stuff like that. There's so many more, but I'm just going to name those two. They are really good at harmony. A lot of the people all in the group harmonize their voices together, and it creates this very powerful sound. So, want to create a band? It's a 2023 New Year's resolution. Like I said, my instrument is mostly my voice, and that's the one I've been practicing for years, and I've really been practicing it the past year, so I'd love to do something with it. And like I was saying again, I'm more of like a tenor, so my voice doesn't go super high. If there was someone who was more soprano, I think that would be great. If there's not just one lead singer in the band, it would complement it. So yeah, there's that. Oh, and also just to kind of talk more about kind of like my voice, I think that it fits more of like a bluesy, maybe like jazzy scheme. So, and that's like some of my favorite music. So I think that it would fit that really well. So just putting that out there. Okay, so that's all I kind of wanted to talk about. It's 2023, but for me, all that means is it's just technically a new year. Okay, so here's my first wall I'm going over, and then I'm going over the other one after this. Okay, so starts off, I have some like guitar scales. I have the major pentatonic scale for guitar pattern, and then I have the major pentatonic scale again, just like this. It shows the root note. It's different look, I guess. Minor pentatonic, same ordeal. I have it twice. And then I have the Greek modes. I think I also fit one down here, which explains the difference between major and the modes. And this chart is kind of helpful. It's pretty cool. It's called the Greek modes. And then it's more pentatonic. I also have the major scale pattern. And then also that same whole half scheme, but written out for all of these 7 modes. So it shows you the difference in the whole half patterns between them, which is kind of interesting when you're thinking about making music or comparing the modes. I have the guitar fretboards, all the notes on it. It's kind of helpful, but it's kind of confusing to think about it all in one picture. I like to break it up and use certain methods, which I will go over some on my wall about that. Here's one of the biggest things was the 43 music theory concepts that every modern composer should master. And this was from the Signals Music Studios guy. And I wrote this on my wall and I started going over, I think it was the first, like as you can see, I checked off the first 16. And then after that, I was so like, wow, like into this stuff and excited about the music thing that I ended up just watching so many damn videos that I learned all these other topics, not in order, just from researching so much stuff and watching other videos. So that was really cool. It was very helpful to me. Here are some basic guitar chords. So you have C or you just have A through G, but it's written out starting on C, and then you have the minor, and then you have the 7 chords. So that's really cool. It kind of gives you some simple versions to play the chords too, which some people might play them a little more complex and add some more notes in there. So then you have here also semitones when you're looking at a guitar and sort of some different perspectives. Guitar intervals here. Just on one string, and then they call it do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, but that's basically just the major scale. And then here are some intervals on the guitar, and as you can see, the 1, and then you have in the middle of the 1, it could be looked at as the flat 9, and you have the 2, flat 3, 3. So yeah, interesting stuff. If you're wanting flat 9, by the way, it could also be flat 2. If you're confused about that, don't worry. Intervals within the octave, minor scale intervals, and pentatonic scale intervals on one string. This is interesting. This is just looking at the circle of fifths and thinking that the left side is thought to be dark and the right side is thought to be bright. Here is the circle of fifths. I have a very good video of me actually making the circle of fifths, so I walk you through how to make it, and with that you understand how to understand it, and then you understand how to understand it. And then here are some tempo markings. And here are what they call the like proper names of the degrees in the scale. So, and I don't know if they call it the proper, there's some word about it, but basically you have the tonic as the first, you have the supertonic second, mediant third, subdominant's your fourth, dominant's your fifth, submediant, and leading tone. I actually do have a video going over that. I'm pretty sure that's in my video called Important Musical Topics. It's a musical Monday. Here, it's talking about the bright side is major and happy, clear with perfect cadences. The dark side is minor and sad with money, plagal cadences. And then as you can see here, this was kind of talking, I think it's called the pitch axis theory. If it's not, I was just talking about basically what is it called? If you go towards negative harmony. So this is like negative harmony here. And it was talking about if you go from C to G, that's your fifth. So C to G is a fifth, and G is the dominant of C. So you're going to take that dominant and the tonic, and you're going to put a line right through it. And then it's also going to go all the way to here in the circle. And then from there, you're going to be able to draw lines from each of your notes, which is going to tell you the negative harmonies of each of them. So C to G is negative harmonies of each other, D and F, A to B flat, etc. And I found that really interesting. And then right here, that was showing you, so major would become minor, clear would become muddy, perfect would become plagal, and bright would become dark, because essentially it would be the opposite. Oh, this is other random stuff. Non-musical stuff. I even did parts of speech. So I don't remember all that stuff exactly. So, cool. Okay, now other wall. Okay, so we start off, it's mainly just talking, well, it's kind of all talking about the harmonic and the melodic minor. So first here we have comparing the harmonic minor against the regular minor, and it's basically the chords. So comparing the chords against each other. And if you don't know what the harmonic minor and what the melodic minor is, so if you have the harmonic minor compared to the regular minor, you have a sharp 7th degree. And if you have a melodic minor, you have a sharp 6th and 7th degree. You just sharpen those two notes. And then from those, you can actually make modes of the harmonic minor, and you can make modes of the melodic minor. So when people think, oh, can you make modes of a mode, or can you make modes of minor? Well, no, unless you start to alter the scales. So here's two alterations of the minor scales, and then with the modes that are going to be attributed to them. Here is on the guitar, the harmonic minor scales. And then here's just when I first started wondering if there are modes of the natural minor scale. I read this article and it kind of cleared it up for me that no, you can't make modes from a mode. Because basically, a mode is just taking a bunch of notes and starting from a different note and having the same arrangement of notes. So you're not actually really rearranging stuff. You're just starting from a different place. And because of that, if you try to make more modes from that, you're just going to end up doing the same thing as before. So you're not going to end up with any new scales. You're just going to end up with a bunch of new names, and you're going to confuse yourself. So, this is some good stuff. This is more like classical orchestral composition stuff. Oh, well, let's start a little simpler. Okay, so first we have down here movable guitar chords. Pretty cool. It explains why you have to add like a bar to some of these, because some of the open notes, when you move it down, you're going to have to accommodate for those. And with a few of the shapes, you don't have to, which is really cool. Then major scale on, and this is all just copied because I didn't want to write the actual physical, I didn't want to have the actual ones on my wall that I wrote down with my hands. So these are just, as you can see, printed copies. But I have the major scale on the piano black keys, and this is saying the right hand always starts on 2, and then major scale on the piano, and we have C, D, E, G, A, major, and then are these patterns, including B for the right hand, and then we have some different patterns, B and F for the left hand, F for the right hand. Note for it. Circle of fifths on the piano. And, oh, stringed instruments. So here we start to understand that the violin is tuned in fifths. So if you understand the circle of fifths, wow, it's actually really easy. G, D, A, E is a violin's tuning. And then if you go a fifth down from that, that's a viola's tuning. So then a fifth down from G, D, A, E would just be C, G, D, A. If you think about the circle of fifths, that's really simple. And then if you go an octave down from the viola, okay, then you have the cello's tuning. So you have C, G, D, A. I don't want to get into comparing where those are in the register, but you can probably make sense of it if you want to, or look it up. Here's just something talking about the brass section's dynamic balance. Here is talking about the registers of piano. Piano's a pretty impressive instrument in terms of the register and the notes it can hit. Then we have a Venn diagram of certain dynamics, balance of dynamics. Here are some orchestral tutti chords from some different composers. Here is Appoggiatura, and here's the Cantus Firmus. Here's the guitar major scale pattern. I have a video on this, and then also have a video on the guitar major scale pattern 7L, which is right here. And then I also have a video on this, which is the guitar strings and how to memorize the guitar strings. So you just remember every other note, and with that you memorize every note. Here's a little diagram of chords that are in different keys. Up there I have another sort of chord finder thing, major keys and their relative minors. I have something about cadences. Then I have something about talking about time signatures. So if the top has a 2, 3, and 4, it's simple. If the top is a 6, 9, or 12, it's compound. Or if the top is a 5 or 7, it's irregular. Here is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then also the chromatics of that, which I do have a video of that on my Music Monday, which is important music topics. Then talking about sus chords in a major scale, transpositional instruments, which I have a video on. Then this shows sort of relationships between different modes and also relationships between modes in the pentatonic scale. Over here I have a wall of a bunch of guitar scales, all in A. And then over here, some interesting stuff. We have different registers of, oh, I see. So it's comparing the treble clef to guitar tab. And then here is the treble clef and bass clef notes inside of them. Then this is bass, alto, and treble. Up here we talk about tenor clef. Alto clef is somewhere too. Alto clef right there. And then talk about the four voices, bass, tenor, alto, soprano. And then the formula for the equal temperament ratio. And then how that relates to different consonances and dissonances. Thank you very much. 2023 New Year.